Hi, it's Barry Erdell here for Glass Cover again. We are doing a tutorial session on how to go about doing the applications for glass cover, how to go about doing the mixtures, and how we go about putting it on the walls. The first thing I want to go over is what's required to be able to do this. The first thing everyone must have, of course, is a paint tray. Paint tray is a regular thing like this with a clear insert that goes in there. That's just to protect the bottom of the paint tray when the product dries up. So we'll be able to take this out after and throw it away. You need a roller brush, and of course you need a roller brush foam. It must be foam. If you're using another type of roller brush, what's going to end up happening is that you're going to end up with little fibers coming off of this that are going to be able to be seen in the protection. So we always want to stay away from using that. We want to be using foam. A mask, respirators are even better. It's generally very important to be wearing this. I'm doing it in a very big facility over here, so I'm going to forego wearing the masks, but it is always recommended that a mask or respirator is used. And of course, gloves for your hands, because you want to keep it away from your skin, and goggles as well are recommended every time you use this. The last two things that we're going to need, we need a container to do the mixture in. Because we're doing a very small mixture, I'm just doing this in a small plastic cup. Generally speaking, I will do the mixtures in 5-gallon jugs, or if you have to do a bigger job, of course, you would go bigger as required. The most important thing is a digital scale that's able to measure in grams. We have the conversions for our clients in the States, but it must be able to measure at a smaller amount. I use a Cuisinart digital scale. This is a regular scale most people would have in their kitchen that are dieting, that wants to measure out their food. So, what we would do first is always put your safety gloves on. Generally speaking, again, a respirator and or goggles. Each component that we're doing has 3 elements in it. The first coat is called SL100, which is the primer coat. And the second coat is called SL600. We're going to do an example as if we're doing it on metal today, or wood. It would change slightly different if we're doing it on metal, and we will be discussing that in another video coming forward on how you do go about putting it on a very porous surface. So, what we want to look for is the SL100 solvent, the SL100 principal agent, and the SL100 hardener. The principal agent and the solvent come in cans that look like this. These are gallon cans. The catalyzer, or the hardener, comes in a liter or a quart can. It's always going to be smaller than the other two. It is very normal to receive 2 big and 1 small. It has to do with the proportions that we're putting in. Sometimes it might not arrive in a container like this. It might sometimes arrive in a container that looks like this. Not to be worried, it's one and the same, it's just different packaging that we have for different usages. So, the first thing I always like to do is, I like to label 1, 2, and 3 with the products that I'm using. That way there's generally no way in confusing which product goes in when. So, what you would do is you would come to your SL100 principal, and all you would do is mark a 1 on it. You would take the hardener, you would make a number 2 on it, and you'd take the solvent and you'd put a 3 on it. I like to make them big and dark just so you are certain of the product you are using. Again, it's not necessary, but we recommend always adding it principal, hardener, solvent. Less confusion, keeps it a little bit more orderly and neat, and less chance of an error occurring. So, how do we know what proportions to mix this with? Everyone will receive the mix table sheet. The mix table sheet looks like this. It's just a sheet showing you between 1 square meter and 10 square meters, or for our American clients, 10 square feet to 100 square feet. There's measurements under each category, and all we're going to do is follow along based on how much we are mixing. For our demonstration today, we are only going to do 1 square meter or 10 square feet. It's the smallest amount that we can mix in one time, and it's just for demonstration purposes. So, what this is saying here is for SL100 metal, we need 36 grams of the principal, we need 6 grams of the catalyzer or the hardener, and we need 34 grams of the solvent. So, what we're going to do is we're going to take our container, we're going to put it on top of our scale. We're going to turn it on. It's always important that the container be on the scale when you turn it on so that it's taking into account that weight already. Otherwise, it's going to weigh this at 2, 3, 4 grams and your measurements will be off. So you want it to start at 0 with the container on them. You're going to go again to grab the SL100 principal, being sure to look at, oh, this is number 1 that I'm using. We're going to open up the mixture, and based on the mix table, we're going to put 36 grams on that. You're going to get used to, as you go by pouring this, on how much each little thing weighs. You know, it takes a little bit of time getting used to. A gram is a very small amount, so just a little bit sometimes will set it off, way off sometimes. So, we're going to get dead on to 36 grams of the principal. We're going to seal the principal back up. And we're going to grab the second component, which is the SL100 catalyzer or hardener. Same thing. We're going to take the cap off. We're going to pour in 6 grams of this one. Being careful, I almost made the mistake, to reset it again. So you're working off of 0 weight off of the scale. Every time you reset it, it'll go back to 0. We're going to put in 6. Oh, that's it. Very small amount always of the second. After the second component goes in, you're going to want to mix them together for 15 seconds or so. All you're going to do is take something to mix it. We're going to mix it around for 15 seconds. This is allowing the chemical bonds to be a little bit stronger before we add the solvent in. We want everything to be very, very well mixed when you're doing this. So, again, reset once it goes back on the scale, so we're starting again at 0. We're now going to add 34 grams of the solvent, or number 3. Again, open it up, and we put in 34 grams. There we go. Perfect. Once the third element is added in, the mixture, for all purposes, is complete. What we're going to do once the third goes in is we're going to mix it for a minute straight. Again, the mixture is just allowing everything to mix together properly, bond properly, and really become the protection coat that we're looking for and want. I just want to tell you a little bit about what this stuff looks like. In its mixed form, it's going to appear like water. Very clear. It's slightly more viscous than water, but you're just going to want to make sure that if you happen to have water bottles or anything lying around, not in a normal case, keep it separated. You don't want any accidents to happen when it comes to that. So again, we mix it for a minute together. At that point, all that's going to happen is we are going to pour it into our paint basin. At that point, it's ready for application. If it happens to be very warm outside, 30 plus degrees or 80-85 degrees Fahrenheit and up, you have pretty much a half an hour to get this stuff on and sorted out before it'll start to bond. If you're in cooler weather, don't worry about it. You pretty much have a half an hour to an hour to put that on. All you would do at that point is you would dip your foam roll brush, or if you happen to be using a spray gun, you would be putting this mixture, instead of into a paint tray, directly into the basin for the paint tray. I'll do a little test with it just here on wood, just to show you how easy. You would go on 1, 2, 3. You do not need a thick coating on something like this. Thin layers. If you happen to see it go on, you're going to notice little small bubbles in it on the first coat. Those are little air pockets. They will pop and go away. It's perfectly normal to see that when you first put it on. After a little bit of drying time, it will go away and look completely clear over it, so you don't have to worry about that. What would happen after this point is 4 hours later at minimum, we would come back and we would put the second coat on that. The second coat is the SL600. It comes in the same type of packaging, although instead of being in cans, it's going to be in this blue plastic container. Again, just different packaging, otherwise everything is the same. Easier to open, easier to pour than the other ones. So we've been trying to make some improvements to it. Another big difference between these two is that you're going to notice once you've mixed the second coat, which we will show in another video, it tends to look yellowish. Not to worry again, the yellow coat will dry perfectly and will be completely clear, having no color retention to it as well. So that's the first tutorial video we're shooting on how to do the mixture of the first 3 elements, or the SL100 coat. Again, very easy. The easiest thing to pay attention to and that you have to realize is that you have to stay as close as possible to the measurements on our mixed ratio sheet. It can be 1-2 grams off, but just a little over pouring will throw it off by 4, 5, 6, 10 grams. So be careful about doing that. And that concludes our first tutorial on there. Thank you for considering glass cover.